Hello there, and welcome back to Life in Bold. I don't want to say I'm excited for this episode, but I had the inspiration from this episode based on some news that came in today about a shooting in Nashville. So this episode is going to be definitely about how I plan to live my life in bold and how I relate being more bold to politics and being involved and being politically activated. And so I hope you'll stick around and hear me out on how I'm connecting politics and news and shootings to this podcast, Life in Bold. I thought about how do I want to present this information, because Life in Bold is not a news podcast. It's also not necessarily a politics podcast. And I don't want to be spreading news because I'm not good at that and I'm not the person to be doing that. What I do want to be talking about is finding authenticity and finding truth in who we are as people. And for me, politics is going to be a part of that. Whether you're on the right, whether you're on the left, whether you're somewhere in the middle, whether you stand for this, whether you stand for that, it is important to stand in it and understand it and be bold in it. And so I want to create this space to allow people to reflect on what level they want to be activated and active politically as it relates to being bold. So I told myself that I wouldn't treat this like a news episode, and I really don't want it to be something that I am the first person you're hearing this from. But essentially, there was a shooting in Nashville, and 3 children died and 3 adults died, and the shooter died. From my understanding, the shooter was a woman. She was also a trans woman, according to the reporting, and she was heavily armed. And the other interesting fact about it is that this was a Christian school that the shooter had attended as a child. So obviously in America, we have been dealing with shootings and police shootings and mass shootings and school shootings, and none of us want to be dealing with it. But there is a huge lack of self-awareness from this country on what it would take to fix the issue. And again, this episode is not to convince you one way or another on gun violence or politics or voting or anything like that. But for me, I had a moment today reading the news, thinking through what I want to post about it or how I want to use my voice, and having a realization that really, I don't always want to have to make a statement about political things that happen. And I think that, kind of in the summer of 2020, we all got into this place where we felt like anything political that happened, we all needed to make a statement. And it was really interesting because we all cared so much about things that were happening with George Floyd, things that were happening with COVID, and Trump was the president. We were going through the 2020 election. It was a highly, highly, highly political year. And a lot of people that I know were posting on their Instagram stories about news and stats and fundraisers. And I think that in a lot of ways, it exhausted a lot of us. And, back in the back of our heads, we all know that it's important to vote, that it's important to stay politically activated, that it's important to be involved, that it's important to speak up when things are on our mind and we know that something is true. But I would say, and maybe I'll just speak for myself, that after doing that over and over again on Instagram and all of us kind of repeating what the other people were saying, and for me, realizing that the people who follow me on Instagram are not the people that I need to be talking to. It's my family members. It's people in my communities, either the community that I grew up in or the community that I live in now. And to be honest with you, I got exhausted. And we had the 2016 election and the 2020 election and Donald Trump and mass shootings and, Supreme Court justice hearings and abortion laws and anti-women laws and anti-trans laws and anti-drag bill laws. And honestly, wars across the country, I mean, across the world. I mean, it has been seriously, I would say really since 2016, it has been absolutely exhausting. And I had a realization today that I think I have doled out. I think I've gotten a little bit more numb to when there's news. And I had this realization because the shooting today happened in Nashville. And it was almost like the second I heard it, I almost shut off. I heard the news or read the news, and my mind had a story that I basically just said, oh, another mass shooting, nothing I can do, nothing I can do about this. So let's just move on. And that's not how I want to feel. And throughout the day, I turned on the news and I watched more and I heard more and I texted with my friends. I have one friend who lives in Nashville and, to me seemed like fairly shaken up about it. And later in the night, I wanted to post something. And I know I said I don't want to always make a statement about political things or whatever, but I really just wanted to say something about how tired I am of the lack of self awareness and the lack of lawmaking that has been happening around gun safety and gun violence. And so I was thinking back to a time in 2018 when I actually went with a few friends to Washington, D.C. After the Parkland high school shooting, and I protested and I went to the march and I made a sign and I was a person in the crowd. And I took a picture back then in 2018 of me holding my sign, and it one side said, "Isn't this obvious?" And one side said, uh enough is enough," or "never again." It said never again. And I was looking at the picture of myself because I figured it would be a good thing to post to kind of comment on the fact that I've been thinking about this for a long time and that it's been important to me for a long time. I think even that year in 2018, I dedicated my birthday fundraiser to raising money for Everytown for gun safety. And it was very important to me to do that. And I probably raised between two and $3,000. And that made me feel really good about, doing something toward a solution that I cared about. But, at this point, the posting, what can you really say? Because we all know who's responsible. We all know what legislation is and is not happening. And as a country, we do have to be a United States. None of us are doing anything to truly make a difference. And when somebody does make a proposal to make a difference, it gets shot down. And so for me, gun violence has been a really interesting thing because I care about it so much, especially with school shootings. I have friends who are teachers. My mom is and was a teacher. Um, and I care about a lot of people who are in schools right now, especially children. Friends of mine who have children. I care about those children and I want them to be safe in schools. And gun violence has been this weird topic for me for the last couple of years that I just haven't felt any hope around it. I haven't felt like I can do anything. I haven't felt like anybody is going to do anything. I've been voting every single election. What else can I do? Kind of thing. And I also feel a little bit jaded about donating because what is my $20 going to do to end gun violence at this point? It's really a terrible thing to say, but I've been feeling really hopeless about this topic. And when I pulled up the picture of me in 2018 out there with a sign, protesting, sharing my voice, sharing on social media what I cared about, something went off in me that made me realize that that was a very authentic version of myself. And that was something where I was truly myself and I was truly executing on a version of myself that was important to me. And I realized that from 2018 till now is about 5 years. I think it's almost exactly 5 years since I took that picture in Washington, D.C. And I have changed as a person in the last 5 years. I have become more jaded. I definitely watch the news, but I don't think that I have a possibility of changing any of the news. And I think that I've just become more jaded. And I really don't like that. When I looked at that photo of myself, I realized that that was a version of myself that I really, truly loved. And I don't want to let that version of myself go. I'm only 30 years old. I don't want to feel like my time is up and I can't change the world anymore. That doesn't feel aligned with who I am. And I just feel like I've become a little bit less engaged. Things have been important to me. I've donated where I've needed to donate. And I voted, obviously. Um, and I've gone to a couple of marches or whatever, and I've been a little bit involved, but my heart hasn't been doing what my heart needs to do. And I am somebody who has a lot of strong opinions and feelings about a lot of the things that are happening in the country and in the world. And I do have the power to change minds, and I do have the power to live as an example and show what I care about. And at 30 years old, I don't want to be the kind of person who gives up on believing in change. I don't think that Donald Trump or the Republican Party or Congress or whoever has the power to kill my spirit. And it's hard to keep a spirit going. I think that as when we're all 22, we have this very idealistic version of how we are going to impact the world. And I think by 30, you start to think maybe that's not possible. And, maybe I can't change the world and maybe I'm not going to be as influential as I had hoped. But the thing, when I think back to the Obama years, and there was a speech that Obama gave on his, last day as president. And the theme of it was really all about how it's really every single person in the country that matters in terms of change, in terms of culture, in terms of progress. And I think that in our communities and in our conversations and in our communities and in our families and in our friends, we have to keep having the conversations and we have to keep holding each other accountable and we have to keep our inspiration up because when we let the inspiration go, that's when the haters win. And by haters, I just mean hateful people, AKA Republican legislators. But that's how I'm feeling in this moment today. I'm feeling like the most authentic version of Ben Hawes is a politically activated version of Ben Hawes. And whether that means I'm fundraising, whether that means I'm organizing somehow, whether that means I'm going and marching or, showing up at a protest or showing up somewhere to get my voice heard or to amplify other voices, I do want to be doing that. And I think there's a way that's authentic to do it without over sharing on social media. I think that when we want to be politically activated, we share something in our Instagram story. And that's amazing because it's sharing your voice and it's lifting up other voices and it's really planting your flag and showing people what you care about. I really want to be out there in the world. And after the pandemic and after the Trump years and after turning 30 and finding myself as a performer and as a queer person and all these other things, a New Yorker, I really want to be involved and out there and doing things. Not like I'm running for office or anything like that, but I need to be an engaged citizen. So whether that's on my street, in my community, in my city, I'm feeling that spark again a little bit. And it's important to me to follow through on that spark. And so today's lesson and today's prompt is to really reflect and think to yourself in the last, let's say since 2016, so like about 7 years, check in with yourself. Do you think you've gotten more or less politically activated since 2016? We've had a lot that has happened. We have had so much that has happened in that time. And for me, I think I've gotten a little bit off my path of working toward a world that I want to live in. And looking at that picture of myself from 2018, holding up the sign that said never again, and just, I really felt that at that time, that I wanted that message to be coming from my body and my mouth. So I encourage you to think for yourself if you've become less or more engaged. And then from there, identify what is authentic to you. Is it authentic to sit by and watch the world go on and hope for the best, but know that you're not going to do much to help it happen? Maybe. Or is it more authentic to you to go after what you know is right and to hold people accountable and to be politically activated? I think I'm going to find my way back into that. And being bold is checking in with yourself and identifying the path you're on and identifying if that's the path you want to be on. And so that's today's lesson, and I'm going to leave you with that. I do hope you have a great day, an even better week, and do not forget to live your life in bold. Thank you.